Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every business knows that the customer is king, and in the digital age, that means the digital customer experience is in sharp focus. There's been a surge in digital consumers because of the pandemic, and for many of them, the phone is their gateway to the internet. In fact, Adobe's new 2022 Digital Trends Report says in 2021, 130 million new Asia-Pacific mobile subscribers became first-time internet users. The sharp upswing in the number of digital consumers is putting Asia-Pacific ahead of the rest of the world. Scott Rigby is Adobe's Chief Technology Advisor for Australia and New Zealand. Scott, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much.
Scott, anecdotally, we knew a lot of people shifted their lives online during the pandemic, but basically now we know how many shifted their lives. It's huge numbers.
Yeah, absolutely significant numbers across the APAC region. And, obviously these are all net new customers that are coming online, and, businesses are having to really adapt to kind of these new customers that are not necessarily digital natives and be able to bring new products and services online to be able to service those customers.
So are businesses ready for the change? Are they ready for all these new customers?
Look, I think, no doubt, obviously, the pandemic has pulled the future forward and put pressure on businesses to be able to really double down and focus on their investment around their digital capability. Now, for some brands, that was, pretty intuitive. They already made early investments. Let's call them the leaders. And, they already had that technology foundation in place to be able to adapt fairly rapidly to changes that we've seen from macro environment around the pandemic. I think there's definitely, a segment of businesses here that hadn't necessarily made those early investments, and we call those laggards. So, when we look at the digital trend data, 32% of businesses said that they were leaders, 60% were mainstream, and 8 said that they were laggards. But when you actually unpack the data and you start to really ask some pointed questions, we start to see quite a dichotomy in respect of the maturity of businesses to be able to respond to customers. And, for those net new customers, there is a large segment of brands that just were treading water for a large part of this pandemic by, having to really upskill, invest, deploy new capability, all while trying to ensure that there is survivability within their business.
Okay, so what are the sorts of things that leaders do? If there's a business owner listening to this and wondering, how do I become a leader, or at least I'm a laggard, how do I get to that middle stream area? What are the sorts of things they should be doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because certainly this is probably the most enduring piece of research around customer behavior that's around. I mean, we've been doing this for 11 years now, and we've been able to kind of benchmark the changes, particularly from the leaders versus the mainstream versus the laggards. And the really concerning factor here is the delta between leaders and mainstream and the laggards is continuing to grow year on year. And so effectively, those that made early investments are continuing to break away and getting better and better at their ability to execute around customer experiences in the digital realm. What are some of the areas that they need to think about? Well, certainly they need to be making investments into technology. Technology is really helping enable businesses to be able to speak to customers through digital channels. And, as you would expect over this period of time, there's been, significant increases in technology investment around what we call CX. There are some other aspects, though, that, have fallen by the wayside. So you could say, look, there were businesses that had made early investments and they had pretty rigorous foundation around their digital investments. Let's say, example being their understanding of customer behavior. So why are customers coming to us, net new customers coming to us? What are some of those friction points that they're facing through their journey? What is driving loyalty, and what's driving purchase intent? Well, through the last 2 years, what we have observed is that the implementation, so how you actually capture the data to understand this customer behavior, how businesses then respond to those customers, has really fallen by the wayside. And so this is really an opportunity for a reset for, I would say, pretty much everyone to really look at their digital foundation around how they execute customer experience, to say, have we fully implemented our analytics to be able to understand every point of the customer journey? How are we capturing that data? How are we then, turning that into insights? And more importantly, how are we turning that into actions and the business actually taking action from the data? There is no point in capturing the data and just reporting on it if you don't actually take action.
Okay, so a couple of things there. The first one, until the pandemic at least, and in my experience, inevitably you'd look at analytics and someone would say, "Oh, the tagging's not right," or "We don't have data. We're not quite sure on that issue." Is that improving? I mean, there was always an excuse, particularly in big businesses, about why they couldn't capture the data. Is that improving so that, I mean, I'm sure part of that was growing pains as well, that you can actually get more accurate data that is usable, so you can, take the data, look at it, and actually take an action as a result of it. Has that improved?
I think overall it probably has improved, but I think to some degree we've been moving at speed for a lot of businesses through the last 2 years. Some of those best practices and kind of the rigor that we might have put to analytics hasn't necessarily been there. It's about let's make sure that we can service the customer, and analytics in some cases is being parked to ensure that we get that service out the door as quickly as possible. Analytics and kind of insight, and obviously with the fluid customer behavior, is one critical pain point that we saw from the trend data. I think there's definitely other areas that we can improve on. Our ability, particularly as ANZ businesses, we're not necessarily as diverse, we're not as innovative as we should be. We're not necessarily, our communication across kind of our organization, IT to marketing to sales to product, etc., isn't as fluid as it should be. We're not necessarily as embracing of, say, remote as we are seeing in some other parts of the world. That means that we're competing on a global scale for talent here. That means that we're falling behind. So all of that, there are a number of areas that came up here. I think really this is the opportunity for a reset for a lot of businesses. We made it somewhat through the pandemic, at least at this point in time. It looks like we're coming out the other end of it, but take this opportunity now to really, do a top down and bottom up approach to kind of your CX implementations, the way your organization operates, to be able to then go through the next pace of change that's going to be coming possibly, not too far down the line.
The other point I was going to make, you talk about CX, customer experience, is that it's actually not rocket science. It may be rocket science to me because I'm not a coder, right? But it's actually not rocket science. It's about investing money with good providers to actually get you to the point. You don't actually need to be in front of the curve. You just got to be on the curve. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, definitely, technology has helped resolve some of the challenges that we might have had a decade ago around customer experience, particularly with, you talked about sort of analytic tag deployment, etc. There's a lot more automation happening behind the scenes now. We're using a lot more artificial intelligence to be able to work out what's the right proposition to put in front of customers. So we've definitely progressed. There's also changing mentality. 10 years ago in ANZ, there was this idea of having multitude of different technologies, each with their best capability in that particular niche that we needed it for around customer behavior. And, one of the pain points that we saw coming out of this research was really that 50% of ANZ businesses, the biggest challenge they're facing is integration of technology. And so there is this shift now towards being able to move towards a singular integrated platform. And that's where, you talked about, well, how do I leapfrog from being a laggard to a leader? Well, we've seen Asia do that, right? So Asia saw that there were these challenges associated with having multitude of technology providers and have made more investments into a singular integrated technology platform so that they can spend more time delivering better experiences to customers rather than trying to hold the technology together in the background.
Stay with me, Scott. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Scott Rigby, Adobe's Chief Technology Advisor for Australia, New Zealand. Mobile first. It's something that in media land, so in my world about 5 years ago, we all realised that actually mobiles were going to be much more important than laptops for consuming news. Where's that up to? I mean, certainly is that shift away from desktops and laptops still going on? Is the smartphone really going to be the be-all and end-all in another decade? What's your take on that?
No, certainly we've seen, you alluded to this at the start, which is obviously this mobile first kind of cohort that's coming through, particularly in the emerging markets. And there's no doubt within the emerging markets that there is that continued shift towards that just based on accessibility, cost, etc. In some of the more mature markets like ANZ, look, desktop still plays a role as part of the purchase cycle. I don't think any brand should really discount that, although, more brands are obviously shifting towards, okay, we're going to deploy, say, this new service to mobile first and desktop might come a short time later. That being said, we're continually being challenged with new channels and devices that we connect with customers on. And that's going to continue to proliferate, and it's going to become obviously more challenging for customers as we move into, say, the metaverse with augmented reality and virtual reality, etc. And the cost of these newer technologies drops, then it makes it much more accessible. Now, from Adobe's perspective, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we can deliver the experience, the content, the interaction across any device. It's really about how quickly can businesses adapt to be able to deliver that into the new world, and how much is their demand to be able to invest and meet that need.
Okay, so a case in point, about 18 months ago, Adobe did a deal with Nine Entertainment for audience matching, helping Nine to commercialize the huge amount of data it's got through its streaming sign-ons and digital publications. Well, I'm just interested in how that has gone, but also, is that kind of the way of the future?
Look, I think so. Obviously, there's this tectonic shift at the moment as we moved away from third-party cookies and moving towards what we call first-party data. Businesses are now having to really work quite hard to be able to build out their what's called first-party data pool. Essentially, the data that they collect across their own properties, whether that be a website or a mobile application, etc. Now, that shift has really pushed a lot of customers to have to build out that information, form certain types of partnerships with others so that they can enrich those profiles. And effectively, what Nine did there, they're really doing the same job. They're really helping consolidate that across the different brands and channels that they go to market.
Adobe is a long way away from the PDF. I mean, I'm sure Adobe is still the king of PDFs, but you have many, many other businesses now. And it's funny, when I realized that you were coming on, I thought PDF immediately, and then I thought of all the other products and services that I actually use, Photoshop, stuff like that. It's a very big company now.
Yeah, it's a very significant company. I've actually been with Adobe for almost 14 years now. I'm part of the original acquisition that started this digital experience cloud. And, even the time that I've been with Adobe, we obviously made a number of acquisitions, both within the experience cloud. So whether it be sort of content, or whether it be, our CDP capability. And then obviously that we're adding to the other side of the house around our creative side. So, Substance, for instance, is technology that helps you create interesting textures and substances in a virtual world. Now, that could be for a movie, it could be for gaming, etc. And yeah, it is a very significant company. Based on the last market cap, I think we're at pure software, we're second behind Microsoft. So it's a very significant company with a very diverse range of tools that can obviously meet the future demands of businesses.
Scott, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Scott Rigby, Adobe's Chief Technology Advisor for Australia and New Zealand. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.